You might be thinking now, okay, I get it. Design thinking is a powerful framework, but it can be so overwhelming. Where do I start? Hi, I'm Tim Clark, and I teach design thinking. As a product designer, I've used design thinking to uplevel my problem solving, including earning 5 Nike innovation patents. I've helped students and organizations transform their process and problem solving skills. In this video, I will answer a viewer question about design thinking that I get again and again, and it's a question I've often had myself. Design thinking sounds powerful, but it's overwhelming to think about doing it all at once. Where do I start? First, I totally get it. I've experienced the same thing. So this reminds me of a recent experience. After a long time out of the water, I decided to get back into surfing. And so what did I do? Well, like the typical Tim thing, I went into research mode. I watched as many YouTube videos as I could. I looked at blogs. I talked to people. And of course, I got all kinds of information. Use this kind of board. No, that kind of board. Do this kind of exercise. No, that one. Here's some technique to work on. Get a skateboard and skate on a ramp. That really helps. It was way too much. And then I realized, you know what? I just got to get out and paddle and try to catch some waves and focus on one thing at a time. Just one thing. And each time I did it, there were times when it felt really bad and I felt like I wasn't progressing. But then I would catch one wave and something would click. And I realized, there's a win. And once I mastered each little piece, I realized I could add more bits to it. Design thinking is very much like that. The first way to apply this is to simply start with the weaknesses in your own process. What is the thing that everyone complains about season after season? Start there. Is it lack of time, lack of money, lack of coordination? Just start there. Design thinking can be a very sweeping and powerful framework, but you don't have to do it all at once. In fact, I think it's better if you start in one area, especially when you're working with a team, and show them the power of using one facet of it, and then they'll be more willing and able to support the rest of the team in applying it to other parts of the process. The second way to apply design thinking in a very focused way is to start at the beginning. Start at the brief. I like to think of design thinking in 3 different phases. C is digging deep into the customer's motivation and their problem. And then solve is to solve their problem utilizing brainstorming, iteration, prototyping, and testing. And story, that's when the customer experiences the product itself. And it's the story and the marketing that pulls customers to that product and invites them to experience that product themselves. One way to visualize this is to visualize 3 glasses. At the end of the process, you want the third glass, the story glass, to be full of water. The way to do this most effectively is to start with a full glass of water at the very beginning. This metaphor symbolizes the 3 parts of the process: see, solve, and story. And what I found is that the first cup influences everything else. Fill the first cup and you can translate that to the second, and then the second to the third. It is the most efficient way, and if you do it once the first time, you don't have to refill any of the other cups. It's a smooth and seamless process. So here's a real life example. I was teaching a product design course at the University of Oregon, and on day 1, I mentioned to the students that for 3.5 weeks, a third of the class time, they would not be touching their pencils. They would not be designing. I could see it on their faces. The reaction was very strong and very scared. How are we going to be finishing our projects if we can't touch our pencils or design for the first 3.5 weeks? And that's when I reassured them, much like the idea of the glass, if you fill up your brief, understand the user problem, experience it yourself, fill that glass as high as possible, all of that translates as you fill it into the next glass or the next part of the process. They may have been reassured, I doubt they were, but we carried on. And by week 4, it was amazing what the students were coming up with. Now that they were starting to design, the problems that they had created in the user statements were so strong that the products started to design themselves. You could see in their iterations, in their prototypes, that these were very well-formed ideas. And as they started to show their users, the users resonated with them immediately, showing that they were on the right path. And by weeks 8, 9, and 10, the projects were just being refined for the final reveal and presentation. What we learned from this, and I hope that the students also resonated with this, is that the time spent in the very beginning is not lost. In fact, it actually turbocharges what you get in the end. Speaking of turbocharging, another effective way to apply design thinking in the beginning is on the solving the problem phase. This is where the tools of design thinking really come to the fore. Brainstorming, iteration, prototyping, and then testing. One of the advantages to this part of the process is it speeds up what would normally take a long time, or you would not be able to get as far in the amount of time that you have. One example of this for me was being charged to come up with an innovation project in a very short period of time with very little resources. So our small team, we had 3 on the team at the time, we decided that we were going to spend as much time as possible prototyping. And so we did this over and over, and through maybe 3 or 4 cycles, we realized, oh, it's actually the material that's our problem. So we had our form, we had the product figured out, but then we spent the remaining couple weeks experimenting with different materials. We would not have been able to pull off this project had we not applied it in that way. So what is the down low? Don't be afraid to use design thinking in a very targeted way. Understand your pain points. Where do you need the most help? Is it in the beginning when you're understanding the users and their problems? Or is it in the middle when you're really trying to find robust solutions to their problem? Either way, design thinking will help you accelerate and deepen that process. The best product doesn't always win. So why do some products stick and others die? I have 3 secrets for product success, and I'd like to give it to you as a gift to say thanks. To get your free PDF, hit the link in the description below. And what would you like to see in future videos? Do you have any questions or concerns about using design thinking? It would mean the world to me. Thanks.